This is the Mickey Miles and More podcast, your one stop for information on Disney races, Disney vacations, Disney theme parks, and more. Now, here are your hosts for the Mickey Miles and More podcast, Michelle Scribner-McLean, Chris Eliopoulos, and Mike Scopa.
Welcome, Milers, to another episode of Mickey Miles and More, a place to discuss all things Disney. I am Chris Eliopoulos. With me, as always, is my good friend, Michelle Scribner-McLean. Welcome, Michelle.
Hi. You like my background?
That is like the best background ever.
Does it look familiar?
Very. I spent many a day on that picture.
Yes. It's wonderful.
Thanks. Anything else?
Yes, I do. We have some new subscribers, and among them are PFan 320, the Osia, and Michael Jones. Thanks for listening and watching.
Welcome aboard. Also with us is the good man himself, Mr. Michael Scopa. Mike, let's hear it. Give us a quote.
They'll never recognize me now.
Oh, I know this one.
Bob Iger. Michelle's got an answer.
Michelle?
The Muppets. When what's the little guy? He turns around and he turns into Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Forward.
The little guy.
Yeah.
Oh.
You know, Oz. No, who is it?
Oh, I could think of a name,
You know,
but that would.
The guy with the
The 3D guy.
Fireworks. Yeah.
Yeah, so.
I don't like him. But I probably can't remember. I don't like
Good to know.
either. I like all the other Muppets.
And then, as a return player, Becky Mahnken from MEI Mouse Fan Travel. Welcome back, Becky.
Thank you so much. I missed you guys. It's great to be back.
It's always good to have you here.
We are.
I feel like I'm home. I feel like I'm, like I'm
Consider this your home.
Okay.
This is your place.
Home away from home.
We actually brought Becky on because this is our first episode since the Walt Disney World parks have reopened, and we thought we'd have a little bit of a discussion about how that went, give some good, bad, and ugly. I figure I'll be the ugly part, but so I guess I'll start off. Mike, give me your first impressions on the opening of the parks.
So I think that one of the keys to the parks reopening this week and last week that was successful, one of the key components was that I believe the capacity was pretty low. There were all kinds of estimates that I saw and heard and text with people. And the thought was that the Magic Kingdom capped off at around 20,000, maybe, if that many. Yesterday in Epcot, the 15th of July, there were estimates of only about 10 to 15,000 for the first couple of hours. So, and the reason why I bring that up, Chris, is that when you have a situation where you need to deal with social distancing, where you need to deal with people wearing masks and long lines, and you have an extended period of queue time, when you have a small capacity in the park, when you have small numbers, it's going to work. And it worked. But having said that, there's something that I saw yesterday that was a little disturbing. I was watching a live stream in Epcot, and the person who was doing the live stream went on the ride in Mexico in Epcot's Future World, which is going to be renamed to something like Discovery or whatever. But the thing that bothered me is that as the ride came into the dock and you could see the empty boats in front that were just coming in as well, there was no cleaning, there was no sanitizing, there was no cleansing of the bars that you grip when you leave the boat. So was this just one of those times when they didn't do it, or is this something that is happening more often than not? On the other hand, I did hear from some people that there was a lot of cleaning going on. So I think there's an inconsistency here that
On that point,
I hope that they can fix. Becky?
On that point, Mike, just to throw in here, from my understanding is that they are cleaned every few times. I think that it goes through the attraction a few times and then it's fully sterilized. So it's not every single time But again, that's just something that I had heard that was passed
It,
down from the
it's
different
it's
writers.
really interesting because with the social media posts, I don't know if you guys are like me. Some of the pictures that I saw made me just go, ah!
Yeah.
There are pictures of people, very close in front of the Seven Dwarves mine train. I'm sure everybody saw that picture.
Yeah.
And there are pictures of people clumped together. And then there are other pictures of cast members cleaning. I saw people cleaning Splash Mountain vehicles. And then speaking about Splash Mountain, then you see the 4-hour line to get merchandise. So it's like, it's very hard to, I think, make a fair assessment of what actually is going on, because I've heard people say, you can just walk onto rides, there's nobody there. And then other pictures, it just makes me cringe and
Yeah.
worry.
I agree with you that it is very inconsistent, but I think it's also difficult because we're sitting on this side of the screen and not actually there. So we're relying on whoever's showing us that angle, that they've got the angle correct. Because I've seen those pictures where someone has taken a really straight shot down and it looks like everyone is clumped together, but yet the person comes out and turns around and everyone's 6 feet apart. So without actually being there, you're kind of relying on the source to give you the actual picture of what's happening. So I've been watching the live streams from about 3 different people in every single park, and I've seen good and I've seen some not so good. But then again, it's the very first few opening days, and Universal had done their opening and their first day was very difficult because they hadn't figured it out. I think that they're trying to tweak things as they go along. And so far, given the complexities of everything that is having to be worked out, from when you're going to get food to how you're going to stand in line to how you're going to do merchandise to all of the things all the touch points in a park. Given all of that, what I've seen, I feel pretty comfortable with what they've done.
Interesting.
I think one of the things that hit me watching some of the live streams is that, I've been in the Magic Kingdom, I can't tell you how many times during the months of July or August, and especially when I'm walked through Tomorrowland and I've seen a line, the queue to Space Mountain, and it would be all the way to the TTA, or to the I forget those ships that go above the TTA, but on a midsummer's
The
day.
Orbiters?
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. On a midsummer's day, that's a pretty long line. Now, what if you took every party in that line and you spread it out 6 feet? I think that the end of the line would probably go to the partners statue in front of the castle. So,
but that's under normal
yeah, and
Right.
that's my point, Michelle. So my point is this: that if the social distancing needs to be maintained, and we know it does, at least for the short time, maybe the long time, will that mean that it will be a long time coming before the Magic Kingdom, Epcot, and the other 2 parks, Animal Kingdom and the studios, can get back to normal capacity? I think that one of the learnings, I hate to use that word, but one of the things that I think that the Walt Disney World operators are trying to figure out is what is the actual capacity that the parks can handle without the guests getting upset. There was a line, Michelle, I think you saw this too. There was a line getting into the Magic Kingdom, and the line was going out towards where Bay Lake Towers is and the Contemporary. And there was one person who on Twitter said she was so upset from waiting, she actually went home. And, that's one of maybe who knows how many who are going to get upset. So it's going to be a really interesting several weeks where the patience of both the cast members, who are saints these days, and the guests are going to be tried,
Yeah, without question. And I think I saw the pictures that you're referring to outside of Magic Kingdom, and that was leading up to the security lines, and that was the first day of opening. So knowing that there's a whole new process, you have to tell people now to get their plastic bag and to put all of the metal objects in the bag and to walk through. So it's not just a case of a bunch of people all trying to get into the park at the same time, because that was the
Right.
morning when it was first opening. But the cast members, who you were so correct, I adore them and bow down to them and say thank you, and with all the gratitude in the world, that they're not only having to deal with this pandemic, but of course they're putting themselves on the front line as well, but they're also having to explain new procedures, new processes, and dealing with different people's level of tolerance of this type of change. That can't be easy, and I am very grateful for those who have taken on that task.
Can I be the person to bring up the elephant in the room?
Well, yeah, that's usually you anyway, right?
I know.
You're talking about the epicenter?
So here's the thing. They closed down the parks when there were 39 cases total in Florida. There are now currently tens of thousands, tens per day down in Florida. There are epicenters in Miami, in Orlando. Why is it a smart thing to stay open now? And do you think, Becky, being the travel agent, do you think they're going to close back down again at some point?
Okay, there's a lot to unpack in what you just said.
I know. Well, I figure I ask a question and then step back and
Yeah.
let you guys do all the work. That's my job.
Just throw
Got
the
it.
bomb.
Yeah. And run.
Thank you.
I'm going to go get a drink. I'll be back in a few hours. Let me know how it goes.
Can you send me a keg? That'd be great.
Yeah, sure.
A vat of wine. I'm okay with that too.
Box of wine.
Is it smart to open up? I mean, I think all of us probably have our opinions on that, but clearly the state of Florida has made a decision, and the business owners within the state have made decisions. And for them, they're trying to weigh the economic impact of this pandemic against the numbers that are coming up in the area. I think how do I put this? The people are really going to be the ones that decide if it stays open or not. If they stop showing up, if they don't have the comfort level. I mean, I'm coming at this because I'm sitting in a chair in Seattle, Washington, and I have not been back to Florida, and I don't have a plan in at least the next 3 months to get on a plane and be there, because yeah, the numbers are high. They're also high here in the state that I'm sitting in too. So for me, I have to weigh the risk versus the benefit of going. And do I miss my Florida Ohana? Absolutely. Do I wish that I was there to experience this park in a very unique way? Absolutely. But for me and my personal choice, I think I'm going to sit it out for a little while. There's a lot of other people who are feeling it's worth the risk, and they're at the parks. So while is it smart to open a theme park during all of this in the middle of these numbers? That's definitely debatable. But clearly, businesses are operational in the state. Things are going on in the state. Disney has the weight of 75,000 employees on its back, trying to make sure that they have jobs too. So I think it's a really tough balancing act to make these decisions, and I don't envy the people who've had to make that decision. But people are showing up, people are enjoying the parks, and much to Mike's point, I think that they're going to be very careful about ramping it up. So we're going to see these low numbers because they're figuring it out. They want to make sure that the things that they put in place are safe, or as safe as they possibly can be given the circumstances. So if they need to keep the numbers low to do that until the numbers go down, I think that that's the way Disney will handle it, because they don't want to put themselves at risk either. So I think we're all kind of having that debate internally and with our families. I mean, let's not even talk about what's doing to our own lives. Should we put our kids in school right now? Should we go out to a bar and have a drink tonight? I mean, there's all kinds of questions that we all have to answer, and going to a theme park is one of them.
And Michelle, I was thinking about, there was a tweet I saw. Somebody said something along the lines of, I wasn't even able to go to my mother's funeral yet. These people are going to Disney. Yeah. Where's the disconnect? What are your thoughts?
Well, I had actually a thought and a question, and I'm trying to play the devil's advocate here. I personally would not go, and I've said before on the show that I think it's a big science experiment. Having said that, I think we can all agree that Disney has had an impact on the way that businesses have run, the way that they treat employees, the way that they handle management, the way that they handle crowd control. And I think that because of the mixed messages that we're getting from different state and local governments and national government, I think that they actually could contribute to helping states and communities learn how to navigate some of these, crowd control issues with numbers and things like that. So I think, even though personally I would not go, I think that there might be something to learn in terms of public health and how to manage this all, because I do think it's going to be with us for a long time. I had a nurse friend who I work with who said she thought it would be 5 years we've been dealing with this. So,
Wow.
But my question is, and I'm not expecting an answer, but just to put it out there, Universal opened 3 weeks, a month before Disney, and it would be interesting to look at any contact tracing that was done starting over in Universal, and to see if the same things are going to happen at Disney, so that we could really see if it, use data to make a decision whether or not this is causing the spread to be worse. So just something.
They had those cases. There was remember they talked about somebody tested positive, a team member from Universal, that they quarantined 12 of them. I have not heard any follow-up to that.
Right.
And that's kind of concerning too, is I worry. I know Disney has that whole nobody dies on property rule, and I wonder if this starts to carry over. There are people who are asymptomatic who will get into the parks and knock somebody else out with it. But Mike, I'm disappointed because all these people are going in and I'm not able to go, and I probably will not be able to go for longer because it's going to expand and grow, and there's going to be a lot more sick people, and it's probably going to delay people going back. What are you thinking?
I think that Michelle and I had a discussion on this the other day, and when we were thinking about back in March, what everyone was thinking, that this would last maybe 2-3 weeks, maybe a month. And I think that if you put yourself in Walt Disney World's Power's position, they probably thought the same thing. And if you recall, I think it was in May that they announced the reopening would be in July. And at that time, they probably thought about all the things that they would have to do to the parks. One thing that I forgot to mention is that there are portions of the queues where there are plexiglass barriers when you do the switchbacks. Like for instance, Space Mountain, just before you get on in the Mexican ride, and so you have to say to Disney, they took a shot, and they said July 11th. They had no idea that there was going to be a ton of people going to the beaches on July 4th. They had no idea if that was going to trigger an outbreak. They had no idea if Universal's opening was going to trigger an outbreak. And so, I do feel badly for them, and I think they had no choice but to open. Now, moving forward, we'll see what happens in 2 to 3 weeks. One of the things that's really interesting is that if you compare California with Florida, and you compare how the authority figures in California are saying, things are happening, we need to pull back, and now Disneyland's reopening is now in question. But that's not happening in Florida, where it's just the opposite. And let me just end at one more point. We always hear about the CDC saying you can go from phase 1 of reopening to phase 2 if you have a 14-day positive trend. That is, cases are going down over a period of 14 days. But nobody says anything about, well, what if over a 14-day period things are really bad and the number of cases is going up, like in Florida? Why not say, if that's the case, then you pull back? and that's not happening. So it's kind
Yeah.
of hypocritical.
Well, it happened in California. They started to pull back some of that stuff.
Yeah.
I know in Jersey a couple of weeks ago, the numbers just ticked up slightly. Like it went from the
Yeah.
rate of expansion went from like 1 to 1.03. And the governor went, that's it. We're locking down no more indoor restaurants. We got to keep it.
Right.
You guys aren't doing what you're supposed to be doing. So Becky, any word on Disneyland's future? Anything that we need to know, or some people who maybe want to go there, what they should be thinking?
Well, a couple of things at this point, again, to kind of just bounce off of what you just said. Um, this is kind of the reason or the result of not having one rule for the entire nation, because each state is governing
point,
itself,
Becky.
and different leadership has different standards that they want to put in place. Where, I mean, we have states right now where a whole bunch are mandating masks, and some are saying you can't mandate masks. If I could talk and get that out, that'd be great. So
You don't have a mask on. You could
that
use
that
it.
inconsistency is what's driving us all crazy, I think. Because the same situations happen in California and Florida, but California's handling it differently. I think that the governor there is being extremely super cautious, and so much so that, I mean, they opened the bars and the numbers went skyrocket. So I think that they're going to watch it very closely when the numbers start coming down again, and they feel that it's going to be safe to do so, and that they're not going to have to turn right back around and shut the doors.
Right.
I think that's what our situation is with California. It's definitely a wait and see out there, because they're just being a lot more conservative when it comes to making these judgment calls. But I do want to add something to what Mike said a few minutes ago. The lengths that Disney has gone to make it safe, the plexiglass. I mean, I saw Hollywood Studios streaming today, and Rise of the Resistance in the queue, it's all plexiglass. So instead
Really?
of being
Wow.
just between two railings, there's, 6 or 7 foot high plexiglass between the queue lines, which, yeah, that makes me feel really much more comfortable. Everybody's wearing masks. I saw cast members stopping people just to remind them that if your mask is sitting on your nose, you probably should bring it up to the bridge of your nose. I mean, they were really watching all those details, and even watching cast members say, oh, sir, could you stop and use the hand sanitizer over here? And people were stopping, going, sure, I will. I didn't see anybody saying, no, I'm not going to use the hand sanitizer. It just seems like everybody's being very respectful. And from what I've seen, and all the markings on the grounds for 6 feet apart for all the parties, people are respecting it. And in all honesty, there's more control in the park than there is at my grocery store. So I would actually feel pretty comfortable if I was on property. Getting there is a whole nother story, or going to the grocery store here or the mall. I probably wouldn't do that, but I think I would wander around Disney World.
No. All right, Michelle, we're running out of time. So what, you have a question for the group?
I do. So what would it take for you to go back? So Becky, you're saying if you jumped in the car, you would go back.
You know what? If it was within a car's drive away from me right now, seeing what I've seen in the opening, I probably wouldn't have gone the first day, because again, they're trying to figure it all out. They're trying to make sure that they have all the hand sanitizer refilled, all the little things, the new things that they have to figure out. Probably within a week or 2 weeks after the initial openings. And if I didn't have to fly to get there, yeah, I would definitely consider going.
All right, Chris, what about you?
Look, I was scheduled to go in 3 weeks, Becky, I think. Becky would know since she's my travel agent. There's no way, I was in the initial storm, and when you're in a hurricane, you don't want to travel somewhere else where the hurricane is now kicking the high speed. We saw a lot of bad stuff in the New York, New Jersey area. I mean, it was ugly for a while. And honestly, I feel it's absolutely reckless what they're doing in Florida, how they're not shutting things down, how they're not keeping people at home. I understand it's an economy thing and it's a money thing, and these people need to make money. And God knows, I wish the government would turn around and give some money out to people to force them to stay home so we can quiet down, the case files. I mean, this is getting ridiculous.
So
But
what would it take though? What would it take to change your mind? When will you
empty the
book your
parks out
trip?
and only allow me and my family in. But even just not even the parks, it's the travel through airports.
Yeah.
A friend of mine was down in Florida and she flew back here. She got off the plane. She was coming from like Fort Lauderdale or something. Nobody stopped her. Nobody questioned her. Nobody tested her. Nobody guaranteed that she would. Now, she said, I'm going home and I'm going into quarantine for 2 weeks. She is a responsible adult. But we all see people who aren't responsible. So I can't travel. I can't, I don't know that there are enough safety protocols in place for everybody right now for me to
Chris,
Yeah,
feel
they quarantined the NBA for 2 weeks, but not other people who.
But they tested positive. There's a bunch of guys that tested positive.
Yeah.
So if there was a rapid test available right now to where you had to take the rapid test before you could go in, would you do it then?
No. Like I said, we've seen it around here that people are asymptomatic, especially the younger people. Like, so, you've got 21-year-olds who are walking around, not showing a sign of anything. They take it home to an older parent or an adult that's, has some medical issues and they get it bad. The problem isn't the people that are showing signs. It's the people who aren't showing signs that are getting people sick.
Right.
But if you took a rapid test, if everybody had to take a rapid test, so you would know right away, even if they were asymptomatic.
Right. But you never know, like, if, there's just, right now, it's just too unsafe, Like I said, we took a chance with my son. Like, he said, I need to help people. I'm going to go and be, an EMT. He just recently tested. He tested negative, but we still sit there and go, well, what happens if the next day he went and got a call? I mean, it's a crapshoot right now, and it's not one I'm willing to gamble my family's life on. So that's mine.
What about you, Michael?
You're going to be on the plane tomorrow.
So,
So he's not even taking the bait.
the short answer is no. I wouldn't go into the park. And the long answer is no, because I don't really care what happens in a theme park. I don't really care what happens at Universal or Walt Disney World, Magic Kingdom. I don't really care, because what matters to me is what's going on in the entire country, because that's going to be the barometer by which I decide if and when I'm going to go anywhere. When we see 14 straight days of the United States reporting less than 1,000 cases per day, then I'll start considering maybe taking a trip to Florida. But I think it's a very fragile number. I shouldn't say it. It's a very fragile thing that we're looking at. The slight change, a rally in Tulsa, a beach, a beach weekend in Florida can just skyrocket the numbers. So I think that we just need to wait it out, and I really don't see myself even thinking about going down until I see 14 straight days of less than 1,000 cases per day in the United States. Then I know that maybe things are happening for the positive.
How about you, Michelle?
Or a vaccine.
Or a vaccine.
A vaccine or a rapid test where everybody who entered the park, we knew right away that they did or didn't have it. But I think a rapid test or a vaccine would be my. But I think Mike makes a good point, because Orlando's everybody's coming in and coming out internationally. You just don't know who's bringing what in. But if there was at the door, like if we could do it as quickly as we could do a temperature, it would give me. I would think about it. I would definitely think about it.
And
but I'm not even. I mean, I'm not even. I'm working remotely for the university. I'm not going in. I won't be going in until February now. So.
I'm glad that you asked that question, though, because that's the number one question I'm getting right now is should I go? And the one thing that I keep telling people is this really, really is a personal choice of your risk factor. Do you have people who are immunocompromised living in your home that you could possibly bring it back to? There's all
or in
kinds
a vulnerable
of things.
population.
Yeah.
Also, are you willing to give up an extra 2 weeks of quarantine when you get home?
Right. Well, for those every state pretty much is going to be like, you can't go out of your state lines unless
Right.
you self-quarantine. Pretty
Yeah.
soon we're just going to be like little sections of country saying, here's the border, 14 days in or out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really is a tough decision that people do have to make for themselves at this point. But I'm crossing my fingers, and like you, Michelle, hoping for a vaccine or for a rapid test would be cool. I mean, I would go on a cruise in a heartbeat if you could have people take a rapid test before you go on too. Fingers crossed.
Don't look at me. I ain't going on that cruise.
We know that.
Uh,
Michelle and I are going to figure out a way later on when everything is good. We're going to dart you and take you on a cruise.
Kidnap you.
They're playing.
All right. Well, this is a big subject, and we could probably go on for days about this one. It's very controversial. It's very tough to talk about, but we're going to have to leave it there for now. We actually hope you've enjoyed the episode. If you have a comment or a suggestion, just head down below and let us know what you're thinking. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. On behalf of Becky Mahnken, Michelle Scribner-McLean, Mike Scopa, and me, we'll see you on the road.